What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to podcast episode 34. Going to be joined today by Joseph Daniel, VP of Sales at GEGO Tracking Solutions. Without further ado, let's get into today's show. What's going on, man?
Hey, happy Friday. Thanks for having me on. I know I've been trying to do this for a bit.
Hey, I'm glad you said it because I was going to lead with this is a show that's been in the making, I think, spanning across 2 different podcasts now that I've been a part of. But happy to finally get you tracked down. Happy to see you in a new position and happy to get into it today.
Yep.
So how did you get into logistics? I mean, what was your first exposure, to the industry?
A long time ago in 2006, I was working as a temp and they're like, hey, do you want to go work at this place? They have a crap ton of files. You'll have a 4-week assignment. And as a temp, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll take some stability. Worked there in the back office. They offered me a job working on the sales floor. Did that for about a year, and then the bottom started to fall out there, but they put me back in accounting and had to write out a non-compete clause for 2 years, and then eventually a couple years later, I wound back in it with and it's all on my LinkedIn, like XBO and a few other companies.
So I mean, what was the first start? What were you doing? I mean, at the time, just some office stuff, and then
filing all the PODs and scanning all the PODs electronically, and then applying them so they could get paid out by the customer. Really fun, exciting stuff.
Yeah, this is the old school scanning POD days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool, man. So, I mean, were you ever a broker? I didn't have time.
I was a broker like within 3 months, and then I did that for about a year, and they started laying off people because we just didn't have a summer that happened, according to them. And they're like, but you show up, you cause no problems. Like, why don't we put you back in accounting for a while and see what happens? And I'm like, all right. And then I was there for a little bit. Didn't make it past the next round of layoffs, as what happens in freight, and did some other things. Came back to it in 2014 and bounced around there until last June, actually.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, yeah, like you said, the layoffs in freight are pretty brutal. I mean, you dodged the first round of cuts, so yeah, let's put you back in accounting. But the inevitable was gonna happen. I mean, let's get into what you're doing now. What is GEGO? What separates you guys? I know from the little bit I do know is that you guys are a tracking solution. Obviously, It's in the name. But what separates GEGO, from the competitors?
Well, I hate to do this to you. It's GEGO, but
there you go. Okay.
Don't worry about it. I did
we
that
should have got
three
through
times.
That pre-show.
I did that like 3 times a day. Don't worry about it. Well, I've been other places where we do GPS solutions for the actual assets and means of conveyance themselves. So it goes on the trailer, goes on the vehicle itself. That tracks the vehicle great and fine, but when you actually want your cargo tracked and accurately, you can throw one of these devices into your cargo, like just put a dummy box with your BOL, most likely a return envelope as well, and that will track live GPS. And even if you do air freight, we can integrate with that. But it's constant GPS updating. It's attached to the cargo. You could set it for every like 7 minutes, 30 minutes, a lot of different custom solutions. And then you could assign a geofence. Like I did one where I am doing this thing on LinkedIn where I try to walk like 2 or 3 miles in the morning, try to get the blood flowing a little bit. And I keep a GEGO thing on me. And as I'm walking, it goes, oh, you've just passed Backlot Coffee. You've passed Horner Park. You've passed this area. So my email is getting updates on that because I'm passing all these custom geofences that are just within a 2-mile radius of my condo. So you can set things up like we're pretty popular with the United Network of Organ Sharing. So doctors need to know when everything should be prepped if we're doing an organ transplant. Someone at the hospital receives an update, hey, it's on the loading dock right now, or the guy has just entered the building. So they could prep stuff and get things ready to do a transplant. And then another big one we do is Red Bull Racing. And if you could think of something that's a lot people have an eyes on more than Formula One cars and their equipment, I'd like to hear what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was watching the Netflix race, something about the Formula One guys, and they were like the engines are like $500,000. Some spoilers like 80 grand. I'm like, holy Christ, dude!
Yeah.
So they're going through the price list. I mean, I could imagine somebody wanting to keep track. I saw you made a post, I think today too, about people wanting to keep track of their camera equipment, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing too. I mean, if you're a production, like a film production, is a lot. There's a lot of time sensitive stuff that's there. You have a finite amount of daylight if you're shooting outdoors, even indoors. You and I were talking about a couple shows shot in Chicago, and I was supposed to be an extra on one of them. So they only wanted to shoot between like 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. to make sure the light was consistent. So you got to schedule these things and be aware of where equipment is, where talent is. You know, if there's a car you need for a scene specifically, you need to know where that kind of thing is. You know, why not do live GPS where you're getting updates on your phone all the time?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I would assume there's not, honestly, now that I think about it, I can't think of too many people that are doing load GPS. Because, like you said, most of it's the equipment stuff, like, oh, GPS for the semi, the power unit, GPS for the trailer unit. I mean, that's commonplace. I
Mm-hmm.
was a carrier a long time. I could see all my trailers, all my trucks. That was cool. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know too many people, tracking the freight this way.
It's pretty limited company we're in, but they're rivals, and I'm not going to give them a plug here. Um,
Yeah, yeah, don't worry about that. I
but
mean, I'm interested if we're able to get into sort of like the pricing. I'm curious because you just gave out a bunch of like use cases that would make
mhm,
sense, right? Like, oh, if you want to keep track of like your movie star or like this car or
yeah.
like maybe you love coffee, you just want to know where your coffee order's at. Like, I mean, how does the pricing look?
I mean, there's a monthly subscription. We can either do a 3 month contract or a full year, plus the device. And kind of cool news right now, we're releasing a new model of our device that is temperature sensitive, has a light sensor on it. So, you know, somebody opened the box in which the cargo is in. And I forgot the other feature on there, it escapes me at the moment. But pricing, we're updating that. Also depends on the quantity you're getting. So I don't have a definitive
Okay.
answer, and I'd hate to say
Yeah.
something and then my
No, no,
boss
no. I
Ignacio
feel
would tell
that.
me like
Yeah.
tomorrow that like, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
everything you just said is wrong.
If somebody buys 1,000 units at once, I'm sure it's going to be a different price than a one-off. So that's fair.
Yes.
That
Would you
I want
like
to
a
talk about
thousand
that
units? For
for.
the love of God, email.
Yeah, if somebody needs 1,000 units, man, just hit them up right away.
Yeah.
I like that light idea. So how does that work? Basically, if somebody opens up like a box,
Mhm.
it'll just send a sensor, like it'll
Yeah,
send
you
you
can
back
set
to
a
your computer.
customized alert that says this box has been opened. Oh, I remember now. Harsh events is another thing we can do.
Yeah, like harsh braking stuff like that.
Yeah, harsh braking. Did you get hit by something? You know, it. I think if anything, like you know, if this were high value medication that's being used in experiment, like I was just at a laboratory medicine convention a couple weeks ago. You know, if somebody were moving a custom made antibody biologic vial, I'd want to know how stable that thing is in the transit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like for some reason really stuck on this light thing because there's so much
Yep.
fraud, right, in the freight industry. And if you can
I,
put a device in that'll just ping you if somebody opened your freight, like that seems like a really good idea, right? Like,
I'm kind of glad you brought that up. I've also done a few Midwest cargo theft summits. And for those of you in the United States, this is going to be considered the good old days soon enough, which is frightening.
yeah, that's
Um, there's
not good.
actually a point where they're starting to choke themselves getting the freight out of the country. They have a log jam in their own ports trying to get stuff out. So that's like, hey, welcome to the party on that one. But you were mentioning tracking your assets. We've seen pictures where they know where the GPS is and just cut the cable on it so it
Yeah,
stops
yeah,
pinging. Well,
exactly.
they're not. If they scan and find out that you know, we actually have one of these, that's enough time where the shipment's deviated from its normal route, where the law enforcement can be alerted and action can be taken.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I don't know how much YouTube you watch, but for whatever reason, my algorithm's just been blasting me with, like all the car theft in America. And I've been getting these crazy videos, even in the UK, like just videos of the guys that steal all the cars. And they
Yeah.
have some device that it just runs on sensors. They just walk past your car and they can steal it. So I'm like worried now that we're talking about this because I want to keep this a secret. Be like, oh, this doesn't exist. There's no light sensors. And
Please
so
leave my Mini Cooper alone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
I
I
mean
don't
my
know.
Jaguar XJ5. Yeah.
I think like this should honestly at this point it should sort of become mandatory, right? If you're shipping freight, You
Yeah,
should.
the days of this being a luxury are definitely going to be behind us pretty soon. If not, it shouldn't actually be considered a luxury at this point. I mean, you and I are, let's just say, are moving glass bottles for Tito's vodka, which I've done quite a bit of in my life. Um, so each shipment's worth like 20 grand, we'll call it. One of those gets stolen. I don't know why you'd want to steal glass, but you shut down a production line. People need to order more at a quicker response site than the actual factory. That's an elevated cost. Your insurance is going up, and maybe you had to fire and hire a new driver after that one. Or you could throw a couple $100 towards tracking, making sure that your cargo is secure and monitored at all times.
I'm just stuck. Have you guys been through this question? Because I'm trying to think of the
Mhm.
use case here, right? So,
Yep.
like, this would be up to the shipper or the customer to request it being put in the shipment, correct?
Yeah, or sometimes we've been working with some 3PLs and some trucking companies to be like, hey, instead of calling me 6 times while you're waiting on this, why don't we automate it? Why don't we make it so my driver can drive and not be distracted? Because I don't know if you know this, but is it car accidents or fatal car accidents involving semi trucks are up something ridiculous, like 40 or 75%?
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like we just had the guy the
Ridiculous.
other day who caused some fatalities watching TikTok, man. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
it
let's
seems like
not
every
distract the
week.
driver any further. Let's make it so if you call me and I'm a dispatcher with I'm sorry, just LC with a 3PL, instead of something getting lost in communication one way or another, there's email alerts. Everyone's on the same page. And we
Yeah,
had a prospect that showed us their tracking emails being like 30 people on them, and a big long, chain conversation going on. Or you could all get automatic updates and only have to respond when things look like they're out of whack.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it's not really the carrier's responsibility to purchase this product and track the freight.
Mm.
I feel like it's whoever is buying it or receiving it, in that case, the customers. Because I'm trying to think, if the driver had this, how much use would it be to him? And it probably wouldn't be, right?
Well, it's a value added service too. He could be, he or she, I should say, or that. Could be like, hey, yeah, I'll leave this on your freight so you know where it is at all times. Not only that, but if I leave it on the dock and I drive away, I want you to know that that's still waiting on the dock for you. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a few other things like you might have to leave a return envelope for the receiver just to be like, hey, just toss it in your outgoing mail. I understand that's an issue, but if you're providing that value added service, you might be able to increase your rate.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm just trying to think, like, why is this not basically mandatory at this point? Because with all the fraud, and basically every conversation regarding freight fraud these days is about preventative things, right? Like, let's not
Mhm.
give it to the people. Let's try to prevent fraud. Let's try to prevent things before they happen. Listen, guys, stuff's gonna happen. And why
Yeah,
are we not just tracking the freight like this? Because I
I,
mean,
I
things are always gonna happen.
I agree with you. I think it's silly to, preventative measures will take care of people who are in opportunistic theft, I believe is what they call it. So people are looking for situations where, um, there's somebody's not really checking IDs or there's something in the system. And they're exposing a security flaw. Well, that's going to happen regardless. Like it doesn't matter if it's one of every like 10,000 or one of every 100. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to find out how your system works and exploit a security flaw. So protect yourself. Add an extra layer of security, and that's where we come in.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say like the exploits of opportunistic theft. I mean, realistically, it always comes down to the shipper, right? Because let's say
Yeah.
a brokerage does every preventative thing, they have every toolbox that everybody's selling, they have every preventative possible tool on the market. When they get to the shipper doesn't check what name is on the side of the truck for the most part, and then that's it.
No.
Like that's just the end of that story.
Or
Like,
if you have a like a white Peterbilt with a white trailer,
yeah,
that's like a fraudster's, part of my French wet dream because you could. I've seen them literally put like 8 by
yeah,
10 with
a
like
piece
the
of
MC
paper.
and the DOT and be like, "Hi, I'm this company." Really?
Yeah. Like literally a piece of paper. They just switch it out when they get down there. Order a magnet. They just slap on and off different magnets. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. The shippers, in my opinion, are the most to blame. I don't. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's like I feel like they need to be taking a picture of the CDL, a picture of the side of the truck. It's like an extra 2 seconds of intake for them, and I mean that would solve so many issues.
I forget the name of the company, and I feel terrible because I actually had a video conference with the gentleman. They take a
Don't
picture of
worry,
your
I don't
CDL.
remember anything
They
either.
take a
So
picture of on the CCTV to make sure it kind of matches up. Your license plate, your vehicle number, like everything gets documented and run before they'll start loading it.
yeah, that's it. Like it's just a couple pictures, man. Like when you go to check in with your paperwork, just hey, give me your CDL for a second, take a picture, and you're out of there, right? Because I
Mhm.
mean that's where this stops. There's no more preventative problems. There's no more of all these vetting tools. There's just the first line of defense, boots on the ground. Like this does not match this. Have a nice day, and that's it. And then you just solve 90% of freight fraud right there. So.
And my feeling about, I agree with you. It does come down primarily to the shippers. I feel that the whether manufactured or realistic sense of urgency allows for more shortcuts to be taken, lack of thoroughness, and again, that's where there's cracks in the system people exploit.
I like the term manufacturer sense of urgency because for the most part it's like a really good sentence. But
Yeah, I mean, I've been yelled at by somebody above me, or on the customer side, it says like acting like we don't get widgets from Akron, Ohio to Detroit, the entire world's going to end, or, people are going to die. I'm helping move human organs, and we're really actually in life or death matter there. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean
we're dealing with real urgency.
I can definitely see the sense of urgency of needing tracking like you said in the organ field. Like I mean that's something where you might want to know where those things are going when they're going to get there down to, a 5-10 minute period. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar, I'm not well enough read into like the entire preparation process from the time the organ arrives to it's in the awaiting recipient, but that's a stat I should probably look into and be able to quote on my LinkedIn at least a little bit.
yeah, you can get more into that. But okay, so I mean, let's wrap it up. You said GEGO,
Yep,
GEGO. Okay,
like
yeah,
geography.
that makes a lot more sense than what I've been saying. But let's kind of wrap it up with them. What would you say kind of separates you guys? What's your guys' elevator pitch basically?
I am working on this as an official company slogan, but we're actually putting your cargo first.
Yeah,
So our device is in with your cargo. You know where it is at all times. You're eliminating user error when it comes to tracking. I'm not naming names, but there's some wonderful services out there that rely on the driver. Let's take that sometimes as a margin of error out of the equation, intentional or not. And you're tracking it. We have real time GPS. We're can offer you coverage in dark territory. We have no cell phone reception, and it's you can if you're even doing air freight, as long as you know the flight number, you can integrate with FlightAware. So like when your cargo is shown up to the airport, whether it actually left on the plane or still sitting at the airport. And our automatic safety feature is once you hit rotational speed and rotational altitude change, our GPS shuts off until you land.
wow, yeah.
That's
I
a really
mean,
cool feature, in my opinion. I'm a nerd with tech sometimes, and I really think that's cool.
yeah, I'm like a nerd with tech, but usually just about computers, man. I mean, that's as far as my tech interests really go. I'm not really as nerdy when it comes to like
Yeah.
things like rotational awareness.
Well, the max speed I think is I'm just gonna say 195 miles an hour before the plane actually the wheels lift and you start taking off. And I know I'm definitely off on this, so anyone who's in aviation, I'm sorry. But like once it knows that you're rotating and you're accelerating vertically, that's when it knows to shut off. There's a couple gyroscopes in it.
Yeah, that's cool. So then I guess that's kind of like the airplane mode on a phone,
Yeah,
right?
literally.
That's dope, man. I mean, I want to get into with you some crazy stories because you had told me at some point throughout the past couple of years of communications that you're a comedian. So I want to get into some crazy freight stories you might have.
I dialed the wrong number to the trackier. I'm sorry, the logistics coordinator for a carrier. Instead, I started calling the admin assistant, and her boyfriend answered the phone. Started accusing me of befalling his marriage, to put it on more PG terms, and asked me where he could find me in Chicago. So as I was doing this, I had my laptop open and just Googled one of the most dangerous intersections in Chicago. I said, if you're feeling like it, meet me here.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
not a bad
statute of
idea.
limitations, if I caused a murder, I'm still okay. But
Yeah.
um,
Fuck
let's
that.
see.
That's a
So
really smart idea, man. I never thought to do that because Toronto has a lot of really dangerous places too. Like I should have
I
been
know.
like, yeah, it's just Jane and Finch. Come find me, man.
Find me in find me in Brampton, West
uh,
Mississauga.
Literally something like that. But I mean, what else? I mean, you have any driver stories? Those are always my favorite for some reason.
I had a guy who, when I told him, I'm like, hey, you could go in and check in, see if you could get unloaded early. I can't guarantee it. And his dispatcher called because he was there for 6 hours. And I never forget. You know how people in the South of the United States have like these weird colloquialisms, like that sandwich is so good if you put it on top of your head, your tongue will beat your brains out trying to get to it.
Yeah, they have
This
some
guy's like,
funny
well,
ones.
son, that was like giving a stick of dynamite to a monkey. What'd you think was going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying at all, but it was English, right? Um, yeah, that sticks out. I learned how to swear in some foreign languages, catching fraudsters.
There you go.
That was always a good one. We had more often than not, and a little bit back to what I do a little bit, I would catch people railing the freight instead of going OTR. Be like, oh, here's the repair shop that our truck's at in Montana, and they were always at this one spot, and I was able to find out it was somebody's house and whatnot. Instead, if I had a tracker on the actual freight, I'd been like, "Oh, you railed it. Well, I'm docking you 30%. Don't argue with me. I have the receipts literally." And so I've had that happen. I've had um, COVID times. Say what you want about this. Everyone's entitled to their own personal politics. We had a guy turn down a $10,000 rate because he didn't want to throw on a mask,
Yeah, I
and
mean, honestly, yeah,
he needed to get back to SoCal, and we had ice cream to take to SoCal, and he didn't want to take 10 grand on it.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, everybody has their personal politics, but if putting a little piece of like fabric on my face would make me like 7 grand net, I'd be pretty okay with that.
I would have shown up in a Borat Speedo and, obviously work boots for safety reason is for 10 grand.
Yeah, I would have went in a full beekeeper suit if you needed me to.
Yep.
And like, hey, but also I just realized before we get into all the fun stuff, I
Yep.
mean, it's sitting there in your name, VP of Sales. Obviously, you have some sales experience.
Mhm.
I mean, you want to go over some kind of things that work for you, some things that don't. Maybe touch on cold calling or cold emailing, since that's always some
I think
fun
cold
topic.
calling, just the level of protection everyone has between a gatekeeper and going, I don't recognize that number. I'm not talking to this person. I don't want to say it's dead, but it's definitely not what it used to be. It just requires
A different approach these days.
yeah, have you received my email campaign with 5 different approaches, and then you call them up, and at least you're going like, "Oh, you're the asshole who keeps messaging me." Well, hey, yes, I am. Would you like to talk for 5 minutes, and then I'll leave you alone? All right, fine. That kind of kicks down the door a little bit.
Yeah, hey, just to cut you off for a second, there was a
Yeah.
LinkedIn post. I don't know who made it. I really can't remember. I think yesterday. And I just scrolled. It just came up on my feed. The guy was like, I feel like you guys are sending me on a wild goose hunt. And it's like, he checks his voicemail. And then the voicemail is like, oh, I just sent you an email. And he checks his email. And the email's like, oh, like, here's my calendar. Do you want to have a meeting? And then he like checks his text message. And the text message is like, oh, I just left you another voicemail. Check that. And it just keeps going in this loop of like sending you to different places to check their messages. Like, so that one made me laugh.
There was one yesterday that says, "This is a terrible sales pitch, but please read it." And the guy was just like, "I like your approach. Call me."
Yeah, that was Harrison, I think,
Yeah.
Joshua, where he was like, "You have a beard and you breathe air, and like I have a beard and I breathe air. So like, you want to move some freight?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, bro."
So when I did promotional products, like you have a mug somewhere with a logo on it. So I used to do primarily flash drives and electronics that were branded. And not long after 2008, where everyone was just grateful to have a job, I was working with a company that they would email me and tell me which voice they wanted me to give them their shipping information in.
What
So,
do
like,
you mean?
if you've ever had Kermit the Frog dial you up and be like, "Your FedEx tracking number is 1ZY4624," you know, and they were like, "You know what? Let's call Joe. I just want to laugh." And like, their guards lowered. They're like, "You know what? I will buy 20 digital photo frames from you."
But is that like a series? That's a true story.
Oh yeah,
So you
I
had
did
a
that
job
for
of
all of
just
'08 and some of '09.
for calling people in funny voice. Is that the only voice?
Oh no. Do you watch Family Guy?
Oh, of course, it's like my favorite show.
So I was wondering, Sergey, is the truck really at the receiver, or is that a false update? Did stuff like that. I had
Yo,
some guy call me.
what?
Yeah,
Bro, I literally thought you just like put on like a voice changer on your computer for a
no,
second. That was
yeah,
yo. Wait a second. What the fuck?
yeah.
Can you you have a different one? Holy
Hey,
shit,
Igor, is that really a reefer? Or did you just bring a drive in? You know, stuff like that. Well, my
yeah,
parents
no
discovered I
kidding.
could do it when I was like 9. Like, how many 9-year-olds do you know are doing really bad Sean Connery voices?
Dude,
So
the
they just be
Stewie
like,
Griffin one is crazy, dude.
yeah,
Even the Kermit the Frog. Yo, that's it. Hey, did you ever see the Family Guy episode where somebody goes to get a tattoo? It's like an old one, and
yeah.
somebody goes for a tattoo, and the guy's like, "Oh, I want this." He shows him a picture. He's like, "Yeah, how about Kermit the Frog? You're gonna get a Kermit the Frog," and he
Yeah.
tattoos Kermit the Frog on him.
Where Stewie and Brian met up with Kermit as an informant, and he's just like, "Oh,
Yeah,
someone's too much." Yeah.
yes, they're on to us.
Brian, what
He
is it,
starts
kid?
running.
You know.
Shit, man, that's so funny, dude. So
Yeah.
what? Wait a second. What was the job? You had to call people with funny voices for cold calling, basically.
I didn't, but they were existing customers, and I knew their morale was a little frayed. It was not long after 2008 with the housing market crash, stock market,
Yeah,
etc. And a lot of these people are like, unfortunately, the first thing cut in business is advertising and marketing.
yeah,
It's looked at as overhead, and although it should be considered somewhat of a necessity, so these people are just upset all the time and like kind of being short with us. And I'm like, well, hey, I could do this, and then they just be laughing by the end of it and going like, "You are too much. Do you have Facebook?" And I'm like, yeah, but I want to look at your stuff before I let you follow me. you know.
yeah. I
And
mean,
then
yeah, that's fair. Like you said, in that period, man, that was obviously. But see, that's kind of a funny thing I never thought of too. Advertising and marketing is something that generates profit, right? And I've been
yeah,
through this on the podcast where people need to focus more on bringing in money rather than saving money because saving money is like you're it's a never ending battle. You're just gonna cut
yeah.
your costs until you close. Like
And then a
so,
lot of people are finding out like someone they didn't want to give a raise to. I mean, this has been ongoing for years, long before COVID. Like, hey, we've had this guy here for 5 years. He's asking for a 20% raise. And they're like, oh, screw that. We're not doing it. The guy ends up quitting, finding a new job that actually pays him what he feels he's worth. Um, and then they have to hire 3 people to replace him. And it's like, you could have saved a lot of money doing that.
yeah, and like the hiring process and HR people, and I mean that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
employees just want to get paid, man. Like if you want to, if you're ever gonna think, how do I like treat my employee better? Just pay them more money. Like whatever your idea is not like gonna work as good as just paying them more. Like that's
Yeah.
always gonna be the best retention strategy. Like pizza parties, a gold watch, like none of that. Like if you say, hey, this employee is really good, let's not lose them. Just be like, oh, here's a 10% raise. Like
Yeah.
boom, nice.
I mean, we used to do every other week, we'd order lunches at the last brokerage I was at. So it was a lot of, for everyone in Chicago, it was a lot of Kuma's Corner and, what was it? Blackwood Barbecue. It's good times.
Yeah, my favorite is who said somebody said this to me recently because I
Mhm.
pivoted a little bit in my role, so I've been having some different kind of phone calls throughout my workday now, and
Well,
somebody was like, how do you think these big brokerages have been paying for the pizza parties regarding like not paying commission to people, And I was like,
yeah.
like you, the broker who's eating the pizza, has been paying for the pizza parties. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good one.
And there's a lot of times too, if we ask the warehouse staff to stay late, the margin covered this and one of my places, but we'd be like, "Oh, do you like that barbecue place that's a block down from you? Yeah, we'll buy you all lunch if you stay late and unload our truck."
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've bought lunch. My drivers have bought lunches, dinners. One guy, the funniest story I have about asking, I think it was probably a shipper to be honest for a pickup. They closed at 3 or 3:30. Our ETA was like 4:30, and I ended up calling that. He was a really nice guy, and he's like, "Yeah, like I'll try to help you guys out. Just call me around 3 o'clock." So my driver calls him around 3 o'clock, and the guy was like, "Man, what do you need? Like, I'll bring you money." And the guy's like, "I don't want money." He goes, "All right, are you hungry?" The guy's like, "No." He goes, "Do you smoke?" The guy's like, "Yeah." And he ended up buying him like 25 packs of cigarettes for the guy. He bought him so many cigarettes, man. And I remember they sent me a picture, and this guy was like so happy because he stayed for us that he got like 3 cartons of cigarettes out of it. So,
We had a shipper. I really enjoyed this story. Sorry, receiver. And they're like, "Hey, sorry, we're doing our Christmas party. It'll only be a half hour longer, but you're not gonna get out here 3 hours. We'll sign off on your detention request. Don't worry about it. By the way, it's a holiday party. Are you hungry?" So they had the driver come in and like he loaded up. They gave him to go containers and everything. And the guy's like, "Yeah, don't worry about the detention." And we're like, "Well, we'll just pocket that ourselves, won't we?"
yeah, I mean, inviting the guy in for like a company Christmas party is pretty wild, dude.
I think that given the opportunity, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I had who was it? I think Hunter today from a logistics lounge was like posted a video. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go help my driver unload some wine." I was, yeah, like, I mean, that's the right thing to do. I mean, treating drivers as humans, that's always the right thing to
That's the
do.
other thing. If you can't compensate them more in some occasions, literally showing you have their back is a great thing.
Yeah, just being a human, dude. I
Yeah.
think drivers don't get treated like. However, you know when you bump into somebody at the gas station and like they held the door open for you, you're like, "Oh, thanks, bro." Like
Mhm.
people just don't treat truck drivers in the same. Like they're looked at like a different class of human for some reason. I really hate that shit. Like the driver is just a guy or a girl. Like they're just a human that happens to drive a truck. So I don't know why they get treated different, but
When I've met a few that are like I'm in a different setting, like when they're off for a couple weeks and I might be having a beer, they're having a beer. And I was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I drive a truck. What do you do?" "I'm a freight broker. Do you want me to get a 6 foot head start on you, before you hit me?"
yeah, that's like when I went to do the carrier meetup recently, and all the comments on LinkedIn were like, "Oh, how much detention do you owe them?" I was like, "Fuck sakes!" Like none. I don't owe them any because we pay the detention right away. So
Yeah. I just with the memes and everything, I know there's a some sense of reality, but or perception is reality. Everyone thinking like freight brokers drive G wagons and whatnot. There was a lot of used cars that probably need to be off the road at a bunch of my brokerages.
yeah, I mean, I just posted the picture, man. I got my first car since I moved to Serbia. I mean, I've had a bunch of cars when I lived back in Canada, but I bought my first car here because I never needed one. I lived in small cities or in the major cities for the most part,
Yeah.
so I never needed one. But I got like some older car, dude, some small, like some micro car, you know. And
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, I don't drive a G wagon, bro. Like we're not there yet. But yeah, definitely older cars. I mean, let's get into your favorite joke because I've been waiting for that one pretty much whole show.
One that someone, well, one you could tell no matter how old you are and to any audience.
All right.
So a couple years ago, I got kicked out of the YMCA, and I'm just like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Why are you kicking me out of here? I mean, this is kind of outrageous. Why am I being singled out?" They're like, "Mr. Daniel, you were peeing in the pool." I'm like, "You're gonna throw me out for that? It's a chlorine pool. Everyone pees in it." "Mr. Daniel, not from the high dive."
All right.
Weak, but it's the first one I got.
It's good though. It's good. Yeah.
And it's a good one. Like I could tell my nephews that one, and my dad will still laugh at it too.
Yeah, it's like one of those dumb jokes, but like it has a good punchline.
Yeah.
Now I gotta hit you with this joke because I just told it on my last show. Did you see it already? The joke about a
Yep.
doctor? You didn't see the
No.
clip? Okay,
Mm.
good. I want it to be fresh because my friend group has been roasting me about it. I have to change one of the words from the original joke because I can't say it how it was supposed to be. But if I
Okay.
deliver this joke better this time, then it might go over better. So you ready?
Okay.
I gotta prepare because I got roasted for like the past 3 days about this or 2 days.
Hmm.
All right. I think my doctor might be dumb.
Okay.
So like ask me why do I think that?
Why do you think your doctor's dumb?
Because his name's Doctor Dum Dum. Yeah, better
Alrighty.
delivery. I struggled the first time on the delivery of it. So that's my only joke that I have. Like,
I think my lawyer might be trying out for a television show, and
why?
his last name is Dumb. Dumb, da dum, dum, dum. Needs
I,
work, but
I don't get it. Like,
that's if you watched American television a little bit more, maybe it might. I feel
is
like
that
that
like
was a
just
lot in like the
before my
procedurals.
time?
Yeah,
Is okay.
almost like Law and Order. The dun dun.
Okay. So I've been watching actually for the first time in my life, Law and Order because they have a Toronto version now, which is
Okay.
pretty funny. It's really good actually. It's a good show.
Oh my God! There's another robbery at the Tim Hortons.
Yeah, it's kind of something like that, man. It's along those lines.
I
Jokes.
just like the fact that sometimes when I go there or in northern Minnesota, people add like three extra O's on my name. It's like, oh, your name is Joe instead of Joe.
Yeah, Minnesota I think has a funny accent, man. Minnesota,
Oh,
Boston, like rural Canada. Like the
yeah.
guys
Yeah.
that live out in the middle of nowhere, they sound so funny to me.
I got kind of pissy with somebody from Long Island. Was a couple years ago, so I called him up as Mark Wahlberg on my cell phone.
How did that go?
Hey, how's it going? All right, yeah. You got freight to move. All right. I got a 53-foot truck. What are you doing, huh? Like it took a while. He's like, "What rate do you want?" And he finally hung up the phone on me. But like, I had him going, and like, that was another like, it turns around morale. Like, we had
Yeah,
two
but
loads
you're
left to
like
move.
so good at the voices though. Like I
I
don't
try, man.
understand. Like, can you do the Stewie one more time?
Of course, just hanging around in Serbia, playing water polo in my Speedo, smoking a cigarette, going skip shot from the 3 meter line.
Yeah, I don't know how you could. That's actually fucking insane.
I'm jealous. There's a
Logistics
guy right now.
stories.
His name's Dan Soder who could do Chappelle, and if you close your eyes, it sounds like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, as far as the logistics stories go, you have any other kind of stories maybe
I
that
mean,
you like?
that one was good just because I was like, we had two loads left on the board. It was close to Christmas, and everyone's like, I want to go home. And I'm like, well, we can't do that till 3 o'clock, but here, this will make y'all laugh. That was a good one. We had one at a brokerage I cannot name
Yeah,
where,
that's fine. Please don't name them, man. I've been involved in so
no,
many problems in
no,
my,
no,
in
no.
my LinkedIn career. I'm like so done with all of that. Like,
And this isn't the worst one because I promised I will never tell the worst one that I had to deal with there. Um, so we were all, one guy quit like on a Friday, and
like
I'm sorry,
on
it
the
was a
spot.
Thursday because I remember we all had to show up to work the following day.
Like he just quit that day. Like,
Up and quit, said like I've had enough of your BS, blah blah blah. Well, apparently he still had everyone's contact info on his phone. So it was basically a group chat of the Chicago office. And the guy just calling out everyone's like minuscule stuff. And everyone this started around 8:30. And the collective response was everyone's like, well, I should go to bed. I have to be at my desk at 7 o'clock in the morning, to everyone going, you know what, two more beers won't kill me. And it was just a dressing down of everyone, the office man or yeah, the office manager, uh sorry, branch manager, who was essentially worthless, like him just trying to be like, everyone calm down, we don't need to encourage him to talk anymore. And then in the morning we had to be like, well, that was a fun experience. Like his security has his images. He will not be showing up to this office. Everyone should feel safe. This isn't okay. This is a safe place. Uh,
yeah.
you had to be there for that one, but that was incredible.
No, man, I felt that one, man. I've quit some big
Yeah,
companies and like I've been in big companies where guys are just going off and like we had one time our office manager got fired like in a just on text, like in a group chat. We are like, yo, what the fuck? Like this guy was just sitting at his desk getting fired in a group chat. I was like, damn, dude. Like,
we had two guys at like my not my most recent, but pretty recent one. They were at each other tooth and nail. Of course, they sat them right next to each other. And it was nonstop, like, you're just gonna go home to your wife and your cats and blah blah blah. I would never do that. It's like, dude, shut up, like nonstop bickering back and forth. And I suggested they go on a date together and, finally rid themselves of all this tension. And then I
uh,
was advised never to say anything like that again. And then come to find out 3 months later, those two were in a special mediation where they brought in like a couples counselor to talk to both of them so they could start getting along in the office.
Nah, bro. You know, if any company ever did that to me, bro, I would just quit. It'd be like, if you guys, like, if
I want,
these
I
two
just,
guys can't figure it out on their own, like, what the fuck?
so wanted one over the other to quit. And I will say that to this day, but it was just hilarious that, like, really, you guys have to talk to like a marriage counsel?
Yeah, like, you guys are adult humans, and you can't just like figure your shit out. Like, you can't, you can't just stop talking shit to each other. I don't know. That's crazy, dude. That's like
It almost,
it drives me
I was
crazy.
worried it
Like
was
this.
going to turn to physical violence once or twice, but it was just like, that shouldn't be what I have to worry about when I'm at work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you need, like, I'm surprised to hear a company would even do that. Like, if I was the company, I'd just be like, "Oh, you guys are both fired, dude." Like, how do you want to deal with that? Like,
They booked 75% of the freight amongst the five of us between the two of them.
there you
That's
go.
why.
There you go. Yeah,
And
there's always a money underlier somewhere.
I mean, we could have replaced them with, high functioning chimps as far as I'm concerned. And one of their the hygiene issues would have gotten better in the office.
Yeah, I never understood that. Like, why can't people just like put on some deodorant, bro? Like, take a shower every like 4 days, even. Like, I don't know, man. That's crazy
So
to me.
I wrote a article for Freight Caviar, and the picture I used in there is the dude's actual phone,
Nice. There you go.
and it is 6 months old. It is eroded because he barely washed his hands. I'd come in and just see like styrofoam boxes and other stuff piled up around the trash can, not in it, and it
Uh,
was. I'm just like, wow, this is just terrible.
Yeah, yeah, that's
That
not
and
good.
like, I mean, there's a few like drug stories that happen at the office where we had all to get pulled into a meeting and be like, "You guys got to quit dealing in the building." It's like, why'd I have to come in on my day off for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. Substance abuse issues in brokerage, like specifically in brokerage, is definitely an issue. I mean, not so much. Like, I can imagine the American side of things, right? Because over here, it's not. We don't have a culture for that. But like in
Yeah.
North America, the drug culture is like thriving these days. So
Yeah.
I can definitely picture that being an issue over there.
Well, everyone's pressured to do so many things, and then there's unconfirmed stories of brokerages having a doctor they could send people to get vitamin A, if Adderall.
There you go.
Um, I witnessed somebody take too much Vicodin on the sales floor and seize or pass out and break their shoulder.
Holy Christ, dude. All right, into some lighthearted stuff,
Yes. Let's
man.
switch the topic around.
We got to wrap this up in the next 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes. We got two questions left, and we're going to
Yep.
blaze through this hobby section quickly. When you're
Hmm.
not working, when you're not at work, what kind of hobbies do you enjoy?
I do Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu and kettlebells.
And like some voiceover acting on the side.
I took some classes in it. And I do need to finally get a demo because I need to. There's a talent agency one of my friends put me in touch with. I need to keep that contact warm so that hopefully that person hasn't left the office. But yeah.
Hey, man, I'll hit you up to run some like 20-second Stewie Griffin subtitle voiceovers, man.
Hey, are you listening
Hobby
to
sports.
podcasts? What's wrong with you?
As far as sports go, you like any sports? You watch any sports?
Hockey, ultimate fighting. I liked watching the Olympics. I watch football, but that's it's weird. My house is so weird because like my wife is the one watching the Kansas City Chiefs all the time, and I'm like on my phone and during the
That's
playoffs, like I'm in the next room watching movies.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing this thing with sports where like I have a TV in front of me above my desk, so like I'll put something on, and even if it's the weekend and I have no work, I'll like put on a sports game and then just play some video games and just kind of like it's tough for me to sit down and watch a full game of something these days. I don't know why. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's just unless it's Manchester United, I'll watch that. But that's it. That's the only team in the world where I'll sit down and like actually watch a full game of it. As far as music goes, that's something I can't predict.
I'm gonna go see Gojira and Korn in about 5 weeks.
Okay, is
So
that the theme of your music?
Them. I like Tool. Some '90s hip hop. Basically anything but EDM and pop country.
Okay, yeah, there you go. I wish I didn't have to ask you. What's Tool? I hope I don't need to know that.
Don't worry about it. They're a progressive rock band.
Okay, cool.
So time signatures are different. It's more. It's like Pink Floyd, but like with heavy metal involved a little bit.
Something happened to me a couple months ago on the podcast where somebody said a name and I had no idea who it was. But it's like it was like a Lenny Kravitz situation. Like it's like one of the people you should definitely have already known. So I was like, I hope Tool isn't one of those things all over again.
Nah, not really. It's more on the niche side. I mean, if I said Rammstein and you didn't, I'd be like,
Oh no, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, you
best
better
live
know.
concert I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think they were just here in Serbia, like very recently, but I didn't get a
About a
chance
month
to
ago,
go.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. I got two questions left, and we're done for
Yep.
today. So, regarding train and rail transportation,
hmm
how many chuggas come before choo choo?
8.
Eight. Eight is the real answer, but eight is too many, man. I always think it's four. But eight is the real answer. There is an answer to that question, and it is eight.
I had to say
Um,
it out loud in my.
yeah. So when somebody gave me that question, I had to say I said it like a bunch of times, and I always hit four, but sometimes I even hit three. But then he told me it was eight, and I was like, hell no, bro. Finally, man, to wrap it up is the famous chicken wing choices, sponsored by Fair Trade Workforce with founder Vince Gonzalez. Regarding chicken wings, drums or flats,
Drums.
ranch or blue cheese dipping sauce,
Blue cheese.
and breaded or non-breaded.
Hmm. I go with breaded. I mean, Korean fried chicken wings are some of my favorites, but
Yes. 3 for 3, man. 3 for 3 on chicken wing shop. I was really like praying. I was like, don't say non-breaded, dude. Don't do it right at the end.
yeah,
All right, man. I appreciate having you here and
no problem, man.
appreciate
Thanks for
you
having me on.
telling me it's GEGO and not whatever I was saying before. So that's gonna help me a lot there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and good luck with the tracking stuff. If you ever need anything, give me a shout, man.
We'll do. Thanks for having me on. And if anyone needs me, jdaniel@gego.io.
Hey, have a good weekend, bro.
All right. You too. Thanks again.
And that wraps up podcast episode 34. Happy Friday and have a good rest of your weekend.